I'm Michael Primrose, and this is the Property Finance Podcast. If you have an interest in growing your property portfolio, have experience in development, or you're just looking at starting out, then this could be the podcast for you. We talk about all things property finance, we look at products, strategy, and more. So keep listening and check out some of our other episodes to make sure that you're up to date with all things property finance. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Property Finance Podcast, and today I want to talk about how developers raise finance in the wrong way and how working with a good broker, you can essentially put all the packs together so that lenders are fighting over your deals and essentially just looking at it and being able to give a really quick yes or potentially even a quick no. Because in this business, one of the things that we don't think about is actually a quick no is better than a slow, dragged out no that then costs you money and causes issues. So I've written down a few notes. So we're going to go through kind of the 5 killer mistakes, if you like, and then how to fix each one. So the first one that we see, so this is when developers come to us with any kind of development deal. So this could be a sort of minor refurb all the way through to large-scale new build developments. And the first one is no credible exit. So what I mean by that is there needs to be an ironclad exit strategy. And to get it ironclad, there needs to be more than one. And we've spoken about this loads of times on podcasts previously. But essentially, it's not just having, I'm just going to sell the properties. Okay, that's fine, but what if the market shifts? What if something changes? So sometimes the deal has to fit the exit as well. And what I mean by that is if you're building 4 or 5 bed houses, your exit is probably only going to be sale. The chance of refinancing those and putting them on the buy-to-let market is pretty slim. So sometimes you have to be looking for the deals that fit multiple exit routes. So for example, if you're building 6 terrace houses, there's the sale strategy. There's also refinancing to standard buy-to-lets. Because they're sort of smaller terrace properties, you may even then have supported living social housing as well. So when I say about credible exit, there's got to be something where when you're talking to the lender, and especially if you're a first-time developer as well, there's got to be something where you're saying, right, this is my sort of plan A. If this doesn't work, I've got this as a backup. Because from a lender's perspective, if it is just purely sale, their worry is going to be, well, what if they don't sell? What if the market shifts? Because we've had it previously where, and I've spoken about these deals before, where the clients are building large scale properties and actually the risk that they've got is they're now coming to market at the market as we stand at the moment. It's not the right market for 4 or 5 bed houses, for large scale properties. It's very much a market at the moment for smaller properties, or that's what it seems like anyway. So credible exit, that's the first one. The second one is a confusing capital stack. And what I mean by that is so let's say you've decided on your capital stack before you get to your broker. And what I mean by that is investors, mezzanine finance, potentially money from a SAS pension, all these kind of things. If you come to your broker and you go, I'm looking for development finance, but behind that development finance, I've got an investor who wants a second charge. I've got an investor that wants a third charge. I also want to try and raise mezzanine finance. I've also got an equity partner coming in that's taking 50-50 of the profit. It really does start to get quite confusing. So what I would say is before you put that capital stack together, and capital stack is essentially how the capital in the deal is stacked up. Simple as that. Before you put that together, speak to the broker, start to speak to development lenders, because there's nothing worse than having the back end of, or the top end of that capital stack sorted whilst trying to sort out the foundations. Because when you're building a house, you build the foundations first for a reason. You don't go and build the roof first. So it's the same with capital stack, is build your foundations first, so your development finance, work out what your development lender is happy with. Are they happy with a second charge? Do they have preferred mezzanine lenders? Because the other thing as well is that development finance lenders have preferred mezzanine partners, because what they have to do is between that first charge lender and the second charge lender, so the second charge lender being the mezzanine provider, they have to have a deed of subordination between them. And that's essentially a document that essentially gives all of the power to the first charge holder and sets out a very strict positioning between the two of them that the second charge holder can't enforce on or anything like that, and can't do anything to detriment the first charge position. That deed is quite lengthy and quite difficult to negotiate. So by using a development lender's preferred mezzanine partner, they've already got those documents in place. It saves time, money, effort, everything else. If you're bringing in your own mezzanine partners, then trying to sort out that documentation can become quite cumbersome and quite difficult. So sort the foundations of your capital stack out first, sort the development finance out, then work with the broker to sort out the mezzanine finance, the equity, if you need to bring in JV partners, that kind of thing. having that capital stack sorted with them after sorting the foundations is definitely the way to go. The third one that I've got is no cash flow. And what I mean by that is not putting together a cash flow plan. So essentially, from a lender's perspective, they want to see where you need the drawdowns. Now, that no cash flow point, there's a second part to that as well. So it's not only no cash flow plan, but actually no cash flow to see you through the development as well. And that might be a contractor as well. I'll explain the two separately. So no cash flow plan, essentially what you end up with is lenders looking at it going, well, we don't know when to charge interest. We don't know how to sort of formulate all of our numbers. Everything becomes an estimation until the point you then get that cash flow in place. So you might go to 3 development lenders. Those 3 development lenders, one might be the cheapest, but because they don't know what your cash flow plan is, may end up doing it incorrectly. They may look quite expensive because of that. You might have the middle lender who they may have a fairly good estimate of what you're looking at, but again, they might be a bit off. And again, don't look the cheapest. And then you might have the most expensive lender who you go to without a cash flow plan. They put something together. They happen to maybe back end a lot of the costs, and so they look the cheapest. But the problem you then have is when you actually put your cash flow plan in front of them, all of those figures completely change. And actually the most expensive one is the most expensive one. And the one that was the cheapest, the one you should have gone with, you've already annoyed them by not putting that cash flow plan in place. So having some sort of cash flow, some sort of drawdown schedule is always key. You need it. When we talk about no cash flow from a client input perspective, so lenders always want to understand, right, we're drawing down in arrears. You're going to go do the work. You're then going to claim it back. What happens if a drawdown's a week late, for example? Have you got the cash flow to be able to sustain the business? Have you got terms with the contractor, which means that essentially you've got 30 days to pay things off or 60 days to pay things off? Have you got terms with potentially like your Jewsons, Howdens, those guys? So your sort of merchant accounts, what are the terms on those? So from a lender's perspective, they have to understand, right, if you're coming into this, and people always say this, say, no money down deals. Well, no money down deals are great, but what happens if mid-development you all of a sudden need money? You've had an investor who's come in, they've funded the deposit, everything else, but what happens at a cash flow pinch point mid-development? Where do you go then? Have you got to go and find another investor? Is that investor that came in to begin with, are they going to be able to put more money in? So that's key as well. So when raising finance, that needs to be documented as to, I've got this amount of money that I can pick up in 6 months' time, for example. We've got one at the moment where someone's buying a pub with some land around it. Their plan is to refurb the pub into a house and then sell it before they then commence on the new build development. That's great from a lender's perspective because they look at that as, right, okay, well, we're putting some money in to get you started. But actually, once you've sold that pub, there's an equity injection back into that project. So they love that kind of deal as well. The fourth one, so second to last one, is I've called it thin track record. So essentially what that means is we deal with a lot of first-time developers, and what happens is they'll put their track record together and it's quite thin on the ground in terms of experience. What a lot of people don't realise is actually they've done more in property than they realise. And it could be that you've done some renovations to a personal house, could be that you've had a couple of investment properties that you've done renovations to, you might have put an extension on something. But in the back of your mind, because you're doing a development of 6 houses, for example, you think, oh, well, I won't put that because it's not relevant. I won't put that because it's not relevant. But actually everything is relevant. So anything property related absolutely needs to go in your track record. We have weirdly had people who have told us like their previous jobs. So I had one guy who used to work at McDonald's as a crew member and had that on there as a track record when going for £1 million development loan. Don't put that on there. That doesn't need to be on there. So keep it very property specific and as detailed around property as you can. But no matter what you think, if you think, well, I shouldn't put that because it's too small or whatever, get it on there because we'll work with you anyway to make sure that that track record is kind of done and makes sense. The last one, and this is one that drives me a bit mad, is documents dumped and not curated. So what I mean by that is people will just fire us 3 or 4 documents that don't really make any sense. There'll be a garble of information. And don't get me wrong, as the broker, our job is to go through that and go, right, okay, let's make this. Let's make an executive summary out of it. Let's do this. Let's create these documents. However, from a client perspective, if you can get in the habit of creating some of these documents as well, it can be really helpful for them when you go out for investment. Now, some of the stuff that we put together. So this is kind of like the lender's reading order, if you like. So these are the 6 things that they look at. So the first one is the executive summary. So that is your breakdown of kind of everything, but very, very succinct. So it'll have your GDV, your purchase price, your build cost, but it won't have full breakdowns of those. The second one they look at is kind of the appraisal snapshot, if you like. So they then start to look in a bit more detail at the figures. So they start to go through the appraisal a bit more. So this will be your spreadsheet, if you like. The third one is your program and cash flow. So once they've looked through your breakdown of your build costs, which is kind of the appraisal snapshot, they'll then start to go through your program and your cash flow. So they'll start to work out, right, okay, where is the money coming down? How's this all working? And they'll go through that. If they're happy with all of that, they then move on to your team and track record. So who's your contractor? Who's your project manager? What experience have they all got? Have they done similar sized projects? What have you done in property? They'll then look at the risks and mitigants. So this is talking about kind of what are the risks in the project. So for example, one of the risks might be increasing build costs. Well, the mitigant to that is fixed price JCT contracts. So they'll look at that. And what I'll do as part of this is kind of provide that table that you can look through as well. But we'll talk about that in a second. And then the last one is the security and exit. So they'll look at what's the security on the deal. So most of the time it's a first charge, personal guarantee and debenture, all of which we've spoken about in a lot of detail on the podcast previously. So they'll want to understand, okay, what's the security? How good is your personal guarantee? Is the debenture good? And realistically, is the exit solid? We've already kind of spoken about the exit anyway. So they're the 6 documents that lenders are always going to look through, or the 6 stages that they're always going to look through. Now, at the start of this podcast, we said about why people struggle to raise finance. They're the reasons why they struggle to raise finance. This is the fix as far as I'm concerned. So essentially the way to fix this last part that we've spoken about is building a one-pager. So straight off the bat, and we will do this for you. So part of this is kind of telling you the problem, but then putting ourselves as the solution. But we will build that one-pager. So that executive summary is what we build. You provide us with all the information, we build out that one-page executive summary. So it's the CV of the deal, it's the GDVs, build costs, all of that broken down, and it looks very, very nice. And it's all branded and it looks good and it draws lenders' attention because, as you can imagine, lenders we send out on average probably 40, 50 deals a month. Sort of big scale development deals, 40, 50 a month. If you think there are, God knows how many brokers out there, if they're all sending out that volume of deals, each lender I would expect to be receiving probably that volume every day. So creating an executive summary that stands out, draws their attention, it's absolutely key. So in order to do that, we need a data room. So a lot of people say, data rooms are pointless. Why would I do that for a development deal? Blah, blah, blah. It's key. It's so, so important. So the way that I would have your data room set up is I would have a folder for the executive summary, which obviously we would provide and put in there. The second folder, so this is all within this data room. Second folder is the appraisal and cash flow. So you put your spreadsheets in there. The third one is your planning permission. So that is where you would put your decision notice and all of the documentation relevant to your planning. You've then got a folder for your build and QS. So when the QS report comes back, that would go in there. Anything to do with the build would also go in there. So your tendering process, any quotes you get back would go in there. Your fifth one is your team and your track record. So everything about your contractor, CVs, everything else, that goes in there. The sixth one is your valuation and agents. So when you get the valuation back from the lender, that goes in there. Any appraisals that you've had from estate agents with GDVs, estimates, anything like that, that goes in there. Your seventh one is your legal and security. So anything to do with the legal side of the deal, that goes in there. And then the last one is kind of your risks and mitigants. So potentially you might have JCT contracts and things like that in there as well. And the reason why you would have those in there is because if the lender raises any questions about, well, what are you going to do if the costs increase? You go into this folder and you go, well, actually, here you go. This is what we do. The other big thing is, it sounds silly. How documents are named as well has a massive, massive impact. If something is called scan39.pdf, it doesn't look mega professional. If it's named as what it actually is, it saves so much time for us and the lender. And I know it sounds silly, But just opening a folder and seeing 27 planning drawings, 26 of those are irrelevant. If I just want the site plan, I want to be able to go in and say, right, that's the site plan because it's labelled site plan. If there's 27 documents in there and I just want the decision notice, just have it labelled decision notice. Make things easy to find. That's a massive, massive thing. So creating that data room is key and actually will make a huge difference to raising finance moving forward. And that, whether that be development finance, mezzanine finance, equity finance, JV finance, going to private investors, whatever it may be, this data room is key to all of that. So what I would say is for every project you do, set up a G Drive or Dropbox or whatever you use. I prefer G Drive myself, but you set up G Drive, you set up those 8 folders that we've spoken about. So executive summary, appraisal and cash flow, planning, building QS, team and track record, valuation and agent appraisals, legal and security, risks and mitigants. And you have that on every single deal. Now, you may say like risks and mitigants, for example, you might get rid of that and put some of those bits in other folders, but otherwise the other 7 folders are absolutely key and you would have those no matter what. In the executive summary folder, you may have your investor pack, for example. So if you create an executive summary yourself, put that in there. And obviously when we create one, more than happy to provide that to you as well, and put that in there as well. Hopefully that has been mega, mega helpful. I will try and put in the show notes a full list of everything that we've sort of said you need in the data room. I will also try and put as many of the templates in there as well. So if there's any templates or things like that you need, if for whatever reason they're not in the show notes, please do reach out on Instagram, Facebook, email, whatever. Drop me a DM. Let me know if you want it. And I'm more than happy to provide that. But if you found this helpful, please do like, share, subscribe, do all of that good stuff. But otherwise, I'll catch you on the next one.